All right, in this 10-minute video, I'm going to introduce our assignment that we're going to be working on in class after spring break. But I want you to have ideas and hopefully sketches when you come in on Monday after spring break. So this is going to be Unit 9. Remember, group presentations are still going on. You're still working on those. We're following the course outline. That was Unit 8. So this is a new topic, a new type of digital art discipline. We've been doing raster imaging so far. We've been doing compositing with pixels. Vectors do not use pixels. They use vectors. And they are used mostly for things like logos and type design. There are two types of logos. There's actually three types of logos. The two main types, one is what's called a pictorial or iconic logo. That's what these Olympic rings are. The other type is called a logotype, right? Which is what this one is. So pictorial logos are all image, no text. Logotypes are all text, no image. Right? And then there is what is called the combined mark. And this Corona logo and this MasterCard logo, those are both combined marks. They use a pictorial and a logotype together. Now sometimes, like Nike, all of you know what the Nike pictorial logo is. It's the swoosh. And that can be used in marketing on its own. But then you also all know what Nike looks like when it's in italicized, capitalized block letters, because that's its logotype. And when I was growing up in the 80s, they were always used together. There was always the Nike logotype with the swoosh on every product, on every shoe. And then that became so saturated that they started to be able to separate them out. And now you'll have products that have one or the other. You won't actually see them combined very often. So what are the types? Pictorial, logotype, combined mark. We, for this project, to learn vectors, because we're going to be doing type design later, you are not going to use text for whatever you create. This is all going to be pictorial. As you can tell, these are recognizable logos, but these have been modified for the pandemic, right? Which I thought was kind of funny, to show social distancing and different aspects. One way that you can approach this is to actually take existing logos and then kind of modify from there, like learn from them, be inspired by them. So this has a bunch of components, Unit 9. The first is a question of the day, and this would actually be a good question of the day to think about over spring break. And it is, what are vectors? What are rasters? What advantages does vector have over raster? What are its disadvantages? And vectors are perfectly clean at any scale, right? But they are limited in terms of how smooth their gradations of color can be. So you wouldn't use a vector to make a landscape composite, right? That would be a bad idea. It would look really chunky and strange. But when you're doing line art for illustrations, vectors are great. When you're doing logos, they're great. When you're doing type design, they're great. And I have a whole presentation linked here that is also linked that we'll get into, that has a video that a student created about the differences. And this is a vector, this is the raster, right? So we'll talk more about this. It also goes through the different types of logos. Logotypes, pictorial, and combined marks. Now, how is a logo different than these composites we've been doing? We've been talking about believable compositing, right? We've been talking about edges and color and saturation. Logos are just graphics. They're meant to communicate immediately. And so you want them to be clear, which means you make it as simple as possible. You don't add a lot of extra tiny details because that can slow down the read. You want them to be engaging, which means they're not just forgettable or looks too similar to something that already exists. If you make a logo that's just a 5-pointed star, like the U.S. Army logo, no one's going to ever pay attention to your logo, right? They're going to feel like they've seen it before. And you want it to be versatile. This is why we designed them as a black vector shape. That allows for maximum versatility. They should be able to be printed as small as on a business card, as large as on a billboard or at the side of a skyscraper. And one file that's a vector can give us that capability. These are the three approaches that you're going to be designing your logo in. Central symmetrical means that the viewer, this is probably the most common, that the viewer sees the logo as centered in space and then balanced from the middle, right? Doesn't mean it has to be perfect symmetry. Like the NBC logo is not perfect symmetry in its colors, and the beak of the peacock goes off to one side, right? But still, the overall design is definitely balanced in the center and everything radiates out from there. The most central symmetrical logo ever is the Target logo, right? And the eye is meant to go into the middle and then leave, right? Into the middle, then leave. Into the middle, then leave. Our eye will always leave off of the right? Because we're culturally trained that way. The next type, which is one I'm really fond of, are the dynamic logos. They're meant to move the eye across the image at speed. So they don't use symmetry, right? Because that kind of locks you in. Instead, they use diagonals and they use curves. They avoid horizontals and verticals because those slow eye movement and lock you in. And so your eye just swooshes across them. Right? I love this one. This is from the Rio de Janeiro Olympics. So sometimes it can just get your eye to really move. And then the third, which is the most complex but can be the most effective, is playing with both positive and negative space. So even though we're just doing single color, like black shaped logos, like most of these, this one's green, but think of the negative space, the empty space around the shapes you create. And those can be content as well, like the skyline that's hidden in the key, or the couple that's hidden in the heart, or the giraffe and the rhinoceros that are hidden in the elephant, right? Or the S that's hidden in the U and the A. Make sense? So it's tricky. It's more of a design thing, but it can be really effective. Here are some professional variations on a theme, like just for an otter. This one's central symmetrical. This one's dynamic. This one plays with positive and negative space. Here's an old example using Nico, our campus mascot. Here's a central symmetrical one, though we're not going to use letter forms for ours. Here's a dynamic one. And here's a play of positive negative space where the night silhouette is cut out of the hawk, since it is a night hawk. And then you're going to choose one of your best sketches, and you're going to give input to other students. So you're going to choose which approach for your idea you want to pursue. I chose the dynamic approach. And then you're going to refine it, clean it up. And then we're going to turn that into a finished vector. And this is the finished vector, believe it or not. The actual texture is built into the vector, so it looks kind of vintage, like an engraving or woodblock stamp. And that's the black shape, and then that's the color version, right? What's interesting is once you pick the one to refine, you need to decide what the actual shapes are going to be. This is very different than this, even though they come from the same outlines. Because vectors are shapes, they are not lines. So you have to decide what gets filled in. Right? So we'll do a refined sketch. This is just with colored pencil to understand that. So that's what this is about. Think shapes. This is for Day of the Dead campus logos, right? That's a logo. This is not a logo. This is not versatile. It does not scale well. This is what's called an illustration. And we'll be doing those later. Okay. So try to simplify it. Remember, clear, engaging, and versatile in your ideas. So our refined sketch is going to take our best kind of clean sketch and then clean it up, maybe through compositing or other methods, right? But your refined sketch should really understand what are the shapes you're going to try to make as a vector. And then we take that and we bring it into a vector program. Like Adobe Illustrator or like Vector.com. So, what is our assignment? And I have time. Excellent. So if we go to unit, go to the unit. Here it is. We go past the question of the day. Go to next. I've added that little graphic on the questions of the day about don't use AI text, just to remind you guys that your words are more valuable even if the grammar and spelling is not correct. Because everything in a college class is about your learning, especially in this class. Right? So these are some past student examples. This is for the actual assignment 4. This is your refined sketch, your black shape, then your color variation. This is for a barbecue place. This was for Earth Day. You know, your sketch, black shapes, your color variation, your sketch, your black shape, your color variation, on and on and on. We do different themes every semester. But this semester, we have a particularly interesting theme. And we're going to explore that with thumbnailing for our proving ground. Our proving ground is to do whatever idea we have in the 3 methods: symmetrical, dynamic, and then negative space. Symmetrical, dynamic, negative space. We have 2 rubrics for this proving ground, but before you can start sketching your ideas, you need to know what our theme is. And so you'll find that on the last page where we post assignment 4. The theme for this semester, if we scroll all the way down, is a personal, spring, because we also did it last semester, but we need more. We are doing this as a service learning project for our new Veterans Center building that's being built right next to us. And this is going to be, your symbol is going to be incorporated into a mural that gets installed in that building. So here is some of my design inspiration. I'm the art director for it, right? And I'm going to take your black shape logos and then use colors that keep them all similar. This is a Keith Haring mural. These are some vector-based murals. This is one I'm particularly inspired by, which is a street art mural in England. And it's just going to be kind of tiled up of different colorful versions of your projects. Okay? So what are your projects? You're going to make a personal patriotic symbol, whatever that means to you. It might be related to the branches of the military, but it does not need to be. This is about your personality and your sense of patriotism, right? And if you don't want to do that theme and you don't want to contribute to the Veterans Center, you don't have to. This is voluntary, but it's an opportunity to have your work and be able to put that project on your resume. All right. So that's what you want to look for. And then we'll talk about those sketches and that approach when we come back from spring break. Have a great break.